Morning, market chameleons and soon to appear Dimitri Pargamonic. How you doing, Dima?
Good morning, Will. How are you?
Excellent. We got a bunch of chameleons already on the chat. Jake being one of them, and he says he's live streaming us on the Discord, whatever that means.
Awesome.
Pretty cool. For those who
Yep.
don't know, the chameleon community put together a Discord channel. You can email me at williammcbride@gmail if you want to link to the Discord. Why don't we start with the disclaimer, though, D? What do you think?
Yeah, 1 second. Well, I just realized my microphone is unplugged.
Well, that happens. Always technical difficulties. Also,
How does that sound?
that sounds perfect. Some
Okay.
other housekeeping. We're doing a webinar today. Actually, Dimitri's doing the webinar. I will be on just pushing questions to Dimitri, and that's going to be on implied volatility rankings. Is that correct, D?
Yep, with Interactive Broker. So we're not going to be streaming it as we do on YouTube. As usual, we're going to be doing it through the Interactive Brokers webinar.
Yeah. So
And
I'll
it'll be
put
on the
that
website.
link in the chat as well, so everyone can see that, and you have to register for it. But before we get started, let's go to the disclaimer. What do you think?
Yep. So good morning, everyone. Before we get started, keep in mind, Will and I, Market Chameleon, we're not registered investment advisors. We're not broker dealers. We're not telling you what to do. We're just sharing ideas. If you need professional help, call your broker. That's what they're there for, to help answer your questions and provide you with guidance. There's the disclaimer.
Excellent.
Let
So-
me share my screen.
All right.
I think since we're going to be doing a webinar on implied volatility, and we've been doing some of these morning shows mostly on options, I'm going to come back and do some stuff on some of the stock tools that we have. And today we'll just go to the stock screener and do some example filters, do some example screens just to give ideas how you could use the tool. Before we get started with that, let's just go over the pre-market report as usual. Just take a look what's going on in the pre-market hours. So right now we're on the pre-market report. We have stocks trading in pre-market. We've got the most active stocks, biggest percentage gainers, biggest percentage decliners. I'm coming down here just to see how many made our list for the biggest percentage gainers. That's 133 stocks on that list, 38 on a percentage decliners list. From that perspective, looks like a more bullish bias at the opening. I'm also going to use one of the filters to see what's going on in the higher market cap stocks. So let's take a peek at that. Here's the market cap. I'm going to take this filter and look for stocks 20 billion or higher. And here I see 23 made the percentage gainers list, 13 on a percentage decliners list. So that list not as full, but still giving us an indication that more bullish bias at the opening. Couple of them just that stick out at me as I'm eyeballing it. AMC, that's been news already for, I don't know, last week. That's been on a tear, up 5.7% today on 5.3 million shares trading in the pre-market hours. And what's the story there, Will? It's the Reddit community pushing it up.
I'm sure.
Yeah, because I know that, even the CEO came out. I was reading on my Twitter, account that he's saying that the price activity right now is detached from the fundamentals of the company. So we'll see what's going on there, but it looks like maybe one of those short squeeze situations. MRVL looks like that's moving on earnings. This little E indicator saying yesterday after the close, MRVL reported earnings up 5.6% in the pre-market. And then the next one, Tesla, that's up 3.3% in the pre-market hours. And you were saying some of what's going on with the space travel, Will?
Yeah, well, I was asking if we should talk about the puts in Amazon maybe the week that Jeff Bezos is flying into space. I mean, Tesla, obviously Elon Musk also has a side space project, SpaceX. Amazon is Blue Origin, I think, and Jeff Bezos is going to go into space with his brother in the next couple of weeks. Is the line.
And it's going to be like a 10-minute trip into space and then back.
Yeah, I think part of their model is space tourism, right? And it's couple $100,000, maybe a couple $1 million to fly into space for a few minutes. And
Yeah, I thought it was like over $3 million, like $3.5 million.
Way out of my price range, that's for sure. Not in the McBride budget, but it is. There's a risk, right? At some point, one of these things is going to crash with people on board. It's inevitable.
Oh, that would be a disaster. Yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
that doesn't happen. But hey, he's putting himself in there first.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Not to show my age, but I was watching in a classroom. I think the teacher was Sally Rye, and she was going up, and they had, I don't know, 20, 30 straight space flights without it. I don't know if they ever had an issue with the space shuttle.
yeah.
And all the kids were sitting at home watching that space shuttle go up, and poof, it was, there are outliers everywhere.
Yeah. No, certainly it's risky, very risky. But
I would think it's more risky than getting on an airplane, but
yeah,
I could be wrong.
All right, well, let's move on. If there are no questions on the pre-market movers, I'm going to move on to the stock screener. And
Perfect.
Obviously, if you have any questions on that, I'll take those questions while we're doing it. So I'm going to come here on the screener. I'm going to use this stock screener. And when we look, so here on the stock screener, you have a lot of different tabs giving you different and either data points, analytics, benchmarks for you to screen out stocks. And up here, you have the filters. So we have a lot of filters. We put them in folders, try to organize them and group them together. When you use a stock screener, you're trying to narrow down stocks with specific criteria, maybe that are displaying certain type of trading behavior, okay, either price or volume behavior, or you're looking maybe for different types of descriptive criteria. It could be market cap, certain industry that you're looking for, so maybe fundamentals, valuation. And we're going to just do a couple screens here to show examples. And of course, these are starting points because you have over here over 10,000 different securities, right? 10,000 different securities. There are ETFs in here, stocks, preferred stocks, closed-end funds, different types of securities. Some have options on them, some do not have options on them. Some are ETFs that are leveraged ETFs, like double and triple, reverse. You could go in here, screen them out, and then narrow down your list if you're looking for a particular type of criteria that you want to go and research further. And some of them here, you could use these filters yourself. We have some presets to get you started, so you could start out and then build on top of it. And I have some of my own here that I saved. So this is what it would look like if you save them and you give them names. And when you pop them in, you save them, you pop them in, that will bring up your saved filters. You save it over here. But let me go start out with the preset ones. And when I say you're looking for a certain type of behavior, certain things that might tell you a story or the beginning of a story of a stock that you want to take a look at. So here I'm taking a look. I mean, big gainers, that's kind of obvious. Let's look at correction territory and bear market territory. So correction territory, we define, we try to take an industry standard. That's something that's down more than 10% from its high, but between 10% and 20%. Once you go below 20% from the high, we kind of consider that as a bear market territory. So 20% off its high. Let's do the correction territory first. So I'm going to click on there, and I have one filter here. This little here, stock attributes. I have one filter set here and one on the price, volume, and technical. So here I could see this is the first filter that I put in is a market cap of $10 billion or higher. So that's the only filter I have set. in this preset, $10 billion or higher. And then I'm going to go here and take a look at the next filter. It's highlighted here in red. It says the distance from its 52-week high, it has to be either, more than 10% off its high, but not more than 20%. So anywhere between 10 and 20% off its high. And just that as a starting point. Of course, I could continue using other filters, but now I'm kind of seeing higher market cap stocks that are in the correction territory. Okay. And why I'm looking at it is just to get a glance of what's going on. I know that the S&P 500 is trading at its high, right? So we know that right now SPY is not 10% off its high. So which stocks look like they're not making new highs along with the market? Which ones are in correction territory? So I see here Apple, Amazon, Taiwan Semiconductor, Home Depot, Disney. So these are pretty big stocks. Some of them are the FANG stocks: Netflix, Apple, Amazon. Not pushing it up to 52-week highs. I'm going to go over here just to take a look at the technicals. So we could look at performance and technicals. So Apple, how far is it from its 52-week high? Well, we see it's 13% off its 52-week high so far. Amazon is 10% off its 52-week high. Okay. Still, if we compare to the 52-week low, it's way off. It's 53% off its 52-week low. So that's a pretty, healthy gain from its 52-week low. Amazon, 28%. Taiwan Semi, it's 16.9% off its 52-week high, but if we take a look at its, how far away from its 52-week low, more than doubled. Home Depot, 10.3% off its 52-week high. And then we got Disney, 12.8. And this gives you, a couple more PayPal and Intel. You could see here, they're also more than 15% off their 52-week highs respectively. Again, this is just as a starting point to look at a story of, which higher market cap stocks are in the correction territory, and you could continue filtering, investigate it further. This doesn't necessarily mean that it's a buy or sell or anything like that. It's just to start painting the picture of what's going on. And to me, it's kind of interesting to see that, SPY, did we hit a new 52-week high yesterday in SPY? I think so.
It's pretty close.
We're seeing, Apple, Amazon, and, Disney, Netflix in correction territory. Let's take a look at ones that are in bear market. Okay. So I'm going to come back here. Let's go back to the summary and let's see the ones that are in bear market. So here's the bear market territory. I'm going to click on this. And again, I see here there are two filters set for this. So on stock attributes, I see this in orange. Again, I just put in market cap 10 billion or higher, right? And the reason I'm doing it is because the smaller cap stocks, especially they're so volatile. 10% off its high, 20% off its high may not be that of a big deal as something like, Apple or Facebook or Amazon. So $10 billion market cap. I'm going to come over here, price volume technical. I only see one filter here, and that's from its 52-week high below 20%. So that's off more than 20% from its 52-week high. So we see here Alibaba, Tesla, Qualcomm, Zoom, Square, Uber. So some bigger recognizable names, Airbnb, Snowflake. Those are in what we would say kind of bear market territory, right? More than 20%. Let's take a look at the technical just to see how far away they are. So Alibaba, 32% off its 52-week high, 6% from its 52-week low. So that's gotten hit pretty hard. And what's going on in Alibaba? They're having issues with regulators there in China. I think they're cracking down on technology companies.
Yeah, I think they took Alipay maybe even away from the entity. Like they were going to roll it out into another IPO and all sorts of regulatory issues.
They're having all sorts of regulatory issues. So Alibaba kind of, it, based on its success right now, I think that the government in China is going after them for monopoly type of behavior. So it's uncertain there what's going to happen. But we see here 32% off the 52-week high, 6% from the low, and doesn't look like it's economy based, right? Because I don't think it's really like financial problems. I think they have regulatory problems going on.
Yeah, and by regulatory problems, different than regulatory problems here, right? They're figuring out who owns the company. Does the government own the company, or do the shareholders own the company? It's
yeah, they got too big too quick for their own good, I guess. And like Alibaba is an interesting story because they have a lot of technology, underneath a lot of good technology. I think like Alipay was, one of the most popular payment systems in.
Yeah, it still is.
Yeah, yeah. So it's probably good assets, but they do have those issues.
Well, you look, there's another one. Baidu's another one. I think BIDU down the list is also been struggling.
Where's that one? Oh yeah, Baidu right here. That's off 46% off its high. So a lot of these companies in China right now, that's what we're seeing right now. That's the government regulation.
Yeah, I think that JD is one too. They're all, it's being decided right now. Are these really publicly controlled companies? Are they government controlled? What's going on?
Right. And let me ask you this, like, considering what we're seeing here, right? And this just popped into my mind, where we're seeing Alibaba down 32%, Baidu 46%. We're seeing, Apple, Amazon, even Tesla, right, down 32%. They have significant operations in China, right?
Yeah.
Is this, is this also like a spillover into maybe you're not Chinese based, Tesla's not Chinese based, Apple's not China, but they have pretty significant operations in there.
Well, just so you know, it came out too late for me to mention it when you were talking about it, about the pre-market. But yeah. Robert mentioned that the Tesla news was that their sales were, significantly higher than expected in China. Actually, that was the news Tesla was up on this morning.
Yeah. So you could be very successful doing really good business, but there's that uncertainty, like what you might be facing in China. So here we go. 32% off in Alibaba, 32.8% off in Tesla. PDD. I forget what this company is, but over here you have a little informational sheet. And if you just want to take a look at what this company does, you click on this. And this pops up an informational sheet. So you get different tabs here of information. So here I could see PDD. This is, it's an ADR. So it's foreign based here in China, right? How do you say that name? Can you say that, Will?
Which one?
The name of this company.
Are you asking me to embarrass myself in front of the chameleons a second time today? I have no idea.
Because I don't want to embarrass myself. Okay. It's in the internet retail space. If you want to read about it, here it provides a platform for buyers with value for money, merchandise, and fun and interactive shopping experiences. Company mobile platform offers comprehensive selection.
I mean, how could you name yourself Pinduoduo?
Yeah, is that how you say Pinduoduo?
That's how I say it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm not sure how you say that. Here's a link also to the website. So if you click on that, it'll take you to the website just if you want to learn more about it. So here it is, and you could kind of see what they, about their company, what kind of products they sell, and all that stuff. I'm going to come back here, and if you were just interested in like charts, you could look at, the stock charts, the volume, implied volatility, and so forth. It's kind of here for you, so you don't have to leave this page. If you want to do a deeper analysis, just go, you could go right to you click on this, it'll take you to that PDD summary page. I'm going to close it here, but there we go. We opened it up. That was also China, 40% EDU. I'm going to click on this, and this is also an ADR, New Oriental Education. So it's education training. And what I see here, again, ADR, China. And it looks like even when you go after like something like Alibaba and they're having problems, I'm not sure if all of these are right now, under regulatory scrutiny, but they're going to be in sympathy going down, right? Because who's next is the question. If they could do it to Alibaba, to, what is he, like one of the richest billionaires in the world or in China? If they could do it to him, they could do it to anybody. Qualcomm, this was interesting because Qualcomm down 20% off their high. They are those 60% off their low. Semiconductors, and what's interesting, we're reading about like there's a shortage of semiconductors in the world right now. There's kind of a squeeze, but I'm looking at some of them and I'm not sure why, but Qualcomm, Intel, they're way off their highs. So they're in bear market territory right now. So here you could just kind of go down the list. Uber off 20%, Snow off 41%, Square, that's Jack Dorsey's company, off 23%. But some of them, when you look at the gains they've made, maybe that's not so much, right? If you're 158% off your 52-week low, is 23%. Maybe that's not so bad. It's just what it's saying is a lot of volatility.
Yeah, and the lockup periods ended, so there's a built-in pressure on the shares. People have been with that company for so long, and now they can sell some shares.
Yeah. And
the question is, do they also have a runway, right? How long do they have before they burn out? I mean, I don't know if you want to go to the fundamental, but it'd be interesting. Like, how long is that runway?
Right. So we could just take like a look just to see what Will's referring to.
Jake actually brought something about that PDD. I guess Chinese education providers are facing state regulation on tutoring after hours. He also had insight into Tesla. The money they earn, it's in China, stays in China. It's hard for the company to pull it out.
Take it out, right?
There's another interesting dynamic.
So you'd have to reinvest it and try to manufacturing facility, something like that. You could take out a good, right? You just can't take out the money.
Yeah, I guess Jake says, I don't know if it's 10 billion, remember, but he owes a bunch of money to state-owned banks. The government is gets their hands around everything, right?
Right.
Pushed through the country.
So maybe that's some of it is reflected already, in that stock. But look, Tesla up to 33% from its 52-week low, so it's volatile and it's sitting on big gains as well. Let me take a look. So I brought up Square on this report here, and when Will's talking about the runway, I don't know. Let me just take a look here at its cash. You know what? Sorry. Let me just take a look if they're on our list for fast cash burn rate. Will, I'm going to do this another time because if I'm going to have to, I don't have enough time to describe this report.
Yeah, no, maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow. It's fresh in our mind. These Chinese companies and Tesla and Uber and Lyft.
Yeah, but the idea behind it is, if it's in bear market, if you think it's in a downtrend, you want to take a look at maybe its fundamentals, because if you see technicals weakening and it's supported by weak fundamentals and potentially a weak story behind it, then you got a situation where this stock could potentially go much lower. And I'm going to come here to the summary page, and this kind of just gives us the name of the stock, price, volume. We could take a look at the average volume and compare the relative volume. So this is just telling us on the day how much stock volume is traded versus its daily average. So you can see here, EDU, yesterday traded, this is its volume yesterday, this is its average daily volume. So yesterday traded 4.4 times its average daily volume. This is its market cap. We got the PE ratio, it doesn't have a dividend. And here, this just tells us really quickly a technical indicator. So it's in a downtrend. If you hover over it, it kind of describes it to you. So I might do a technical indicator really quickly example, and then 1 day resistance support. So let me do a technical indicator to show you guys how that works. And then we'll just talk about what pops up. So here, I'm gonna come over here and take a look at stocks in an uptrend. Okay, so these are stocks in an uptrend. So you see here, these are all uptrend. I see there are 3 filters here. So the 3 filters I have in orange, that the price has to be above $10. The moving indicator, it's in an uptrend. So you have these types of different indicators, and it's just a quick way to kind of filter things by how the stock has been behaving recently. And if you hover over it, it kind of tells you. So the uptrend, this is what it's saying, that the current price is above the 20-day moving average. The 20-day moving average is above the 50-day moving average, and 50-day moving average is above the 250-day moving average. So everything is crossed in a bullish manner in an uptrend. Okay, and you could actually, set those yourself. This is all for you, but you could see here there's a 20-day moving average versus 50-day moving average. So you could give it, a minimum, how much above it is, or 20-day moving average above the 250-day moving average. So you have all these filters yourself, but this is a quick way of doing it. The other filter that I said here is that the option volumes of about 5,000, and really I just have that set because mostly we are options focused on the website, so we're looking for a little bit of liquidity in options. So we're looking for today that the option volume was at least 5,000 or more, and we could see which stocks are currently in an uptrend. Google, that's an uptrend. Facebook, an uptrend. Berkshire Hathaway, JP Morgan, Visa, Nvidia, Walmart, Bank of America, and SPY, which is the S&P 500 ETF. So you could see all of the ones, these are the strongest technically moving stocks. We could take a look here, price performance, and this will just give us a price performance, the most recent history. So we could see what it's gained in the last 7 days, 6 days, 5 days. So very short term, we see it's performing pretty well. Google, Facebook. We also see a longer, more intermediate 2-week, 3-month performance. Then we could go like 6-month, 1 year, year to date, 3-year and 5-year performance. So at least this way we could compare this list of stocks to each other and see kind of visually a summary picture of how these stocks were doing. If we go here to the technical, we could see how it's doing from the 52-week high, 52-week low, and this is how this current stock price is away from its 20-day moving average, how much it's away from its 50-day moving average, and how much it's away from its 250-day moving average. So we could see Google, it's 35% away from its 250-day moving average line. It's 7% above its 50-day moving average and 4.3% away from its 20-day moving average. So that's in Google. Here's Facebook, Berkshire Hathaway, and JP Morgan. So here we did a few simple example filters to get you started. Of course, then you could filter it more or go and try to see what is the story behind stocks. You know, how do they compare to other stocks? And this will start painting you, a better picture, and you can narrow down stocks based on certain criteria, stock behavior, volume behavior, and so forth. So we could continue on this. There's still different presets we have in here.
Yeah, well, let's do a round 2 tomorrow. And also, Robert, maybe tomorrow you can show him. He was asking for a way to pull out the Chinese companies, the ADRs, if there was a way to just pull out the Chinese companies. So maybe that's something we can look at tomorrow. Thanks so much, Dima. Great job.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining us. Remember, today, 2 o'clock, we'll have that webinar with Interactive Brokers on implied volatility rankings. If we don't see you, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow morning. Stay safe, everyone. Have a good trading day. Thanks for joining.
Awesome. Now I just put that link. You have to register for the webinar. Make sure when you register and you click the accept box. That was giving some people some problems yesterday. Thanks so much, everyone. Great job, Dima. Have a great trading day.